Welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. This channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes, that you find some inspiration along the way. This is episode 80 and we are in the middle of February, year 2022. It is a cold day today. It was pretty windy out there, but we're having a slight warm-up. I don't know if you can call it a warm-up. I mean, it's above 0 degrees, so that's a bit of a warm-up, right? Fahrenheit. Let me just see what it is right now. Currently, it's 14 degrees Fahrenheit, including the wind chill, and we have a high of 26 today. And it's cloudy all day today, and it looks peaceful outside. I mean, I think after a while it can feel a little bit past peaceful, maybe kind of gloomy, but honestly, I don't know, I like it, and it makes the sunny days feel so much more special. I mean, the snow will be glistening, and when you have the sun rising and that sun like blanketing over the blanket of snow in that warm peachy glow, oh, it is so beautiful. And I think having some of these dark winter days, or maybe not some, but a lot of them, it just brings on the appreciation for the sunshine even more. So I won't say that I am sick of winter yet, or, you know, ready for summer or things like that, because I am okay with winter. In fact, I will take the cold over the mosquitoes any day. Mosquitoes, I could do without. So yes, it's a cold day, and I think we've got more cold days coming. I mean, we're nowhere near spring yet. I know for some people, they're already seeing signs of spring. Yeah, we're not there yet. I think our last risk of frost this year might be end of April or early May. Last year it was, I think, not until middle of May that we could potentially start planting without risk of frost. But I think this year, I thought I saw that it was end of April or early May, something around there. So yeah, not much planting going on here for a little while. Today, I have a few finished projects to share with you, a few works in progress to share with you. I don't know if any of them are new since last time. I think, oh yeah, 2 of the works in progress that I'd like to talk about today are new since the last time we spoke. I think it's been about 2.5 or 3 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And I have that new section at the end on eats and reads, so that I remember to talk about things that I'm reading and stuff that I've maybe cooked up, or new recipes, or anything that I've tried like that. So yeah, I think that is it for that. As always, my videos are fully captioned, so you just click on the CC button for the captioning, and I include links to things that I talk about in the show notes or description box below this video. Sometimes you have to click on read more or show more, something like that. There's a little arrow for that. And I usually try to link to the websites of designers and makers. That way you can find all of their social media or where to buy their patterns or everything on there. And I do use Ravelry for my projects, so I usually have a separate section for that where you can just go directly to my Ravelry project pages and find out more about yarns I use, yardages, things like that. I do try to make it a point to talk about some of those details that might be in my Ravelry project pages in my videos, because I do find that people learn in different ways, and sometimes it helps to hear things, and I may not always write out my process in, well, I don't usually write out my processes in like paragraph form on my Ravelry project pages, although a lot of times I do write bullets for different notes or even recipes that I might have used for socks and things like that. But in case Ravelry is not an accessible site for you, hopefully these videos give you all the information that you might need. So, in my mug today, I have a decaf hot cinnamon spice tea. It is so good and warm and cozy on a cold day. I had a little bit too much caffeine some of the weeks earlier, and it affects me a lot. I just can't sleep. And that, coupled with the fact that I've been reading and staying up too late reading, and so the caffeine plus the reading and the staying up late and the not sleeping caught up to me after a while, and I thought, okay, stop. I know what keeps me up all night, and I am back to the decaf. So I did sleep much better last night, and I think, yeah, we're going to lay off the caffeine and chocolate and all that stuff for a little bit. Okay, I had to shift some things around because for whatever reason, I had kind of cut part of my arm off in the previous angle and couldn't figure out what felt weird. I felt like I had to really lean in to the fireplace mantle here. Anyway, now that I've shifted everything a little bit, it feels much better that I don't have to lean awkwardly and sit strangely. So let's start with finished projects. The first one I would love to share with you is the one that I am wearing. This is the coloring book raglan. I have tested this sweater for Amy of Amy Sure Makes. I'm going to get on my knees a little bit here so that it is more in view. There are some thicker, wider stripes along the body, a beautiful twisted rib detail along the sides that go connecting into the sleeve of the underarm area, and it joins back up with the hems of the body and the cuffs of the sleeve. I just love little details like that. It isn't quite 3/4 length. Of course, you could make it 3/4 length if you want to. I feel like it's just past the elbow on me. And then the length I have knit is the cropped version, and it hits right at the top of my hip. So it is perfect to layer over dresses or to wear with high-waisted skirts, or another option I like to wear it is with like a collared button-up inside, which can be plaid flannel or something else lighter weight, and then just throw that on over leggings or jeans depending on how long that shirt is underneath. So that is how I have been wearing it since I finished, and it is so much fun to wear and style, and it's very versatile. I think because of the wider sleeves, you can fit more underneath if you want to. So what details can I share about this? Amy has written this pattern for various different combinations. You can do a long sleeve version with tapered sleeves that has these preppy little stripes of color along the ribbing, or you can knit one with wide sleeves that has thicker stripes, and you could omit stripes along the sleeves and just do it on the body if you want, or do any combination of any of those views that she has offered, and so that is really fun. It is called the Coloring Book Raglan for that reason, and she has included coloring pages so that you can make it your own. It is a worsted weight sweater, and I used yarn from Knit Picks, and mine is the Wool of the Andes worsted. It is 110 yards for 50 grams, and my colors are Mink Heather, which is this kind of heathered, taupey, warm gray color, and then my stripes are in Cloud, and the Cloud is a cream. And this worsted weight yarn, let's see, I have one that I didn't end up using, 100% Peruvian Highland wool. Here is the ball band, Wool of the Andes. And as I have mentioned in a previous episode, I don't remember which one, this yarn was very budget friendly. It is in 50 grams, which means you can buy yarn closer to the yardage that you need versus buying 100 grams, which is what a lot of yarn comes in. And let's say you only need maybe 25 grams more, and to have to purchase 100 grams is not as economical as purchasing 50. So I ended up using one less, and because it's a cream color, I can use it really in anything. So I'm totally okay with that. I want to say it was under $5 for this 50 grams. And it's 100% Peruvian Highland wool. It is not superwash. And this will be great for any color work, mittens, anything like that. So I'm still very happy to have this remaining to use. I knit the size 2, which has a finished chest circumference of 39 inches, giving me 7 inches of positive ease. It is very roomy. Again, because of all the positive ease, it makes it a very easy layering piece because things can fit underneath without feeling bunchy. It is knit on US 8 for the main fabric, US 7 for the ribbing. US 8, I believe, is 5 millimeter. And US 7 is something else. I don't remember. I'll put it on the screen here for those that don't follow the US sizing. I found this a joy to knit. It's knit from the top down, so you start at the neckline, you do short row shaping so that the back comes up higher, since the human body is not just like a flat stick form. Having the short rows in the back gives you more coverage in the back than having the back like kind of a gaping neckline. And it has raglan increases, and I think that detail there, I'll come up a little closer, is so lovely. And then the twisted rib detail that goes from the body joining into the underarm into the cuff is also really nice. I just love how that is continuous from here, the top of the sleeve, or top, bottom, I don't know, the underarm area all the way down to the bottom of the body hem. So that's pretty neat. And I would love to knit another one. I was thinking of knitting one in DK weight and doing color blocking, because I have some yarn that I purchased a while ago in colors that go together that I meant to knit into a sweater, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So I'm thinking I might do that and just knit each color until it runs out. So of course the top uses more yarn because of the increases and going into the sleeve. So that block will be a little bit shorter than the other ones, but I think I'll just do it like that and just knit all the way through. I'm not quite sure how I'll tackle the sleeves yet, because I won't know. Well, I might know how much yarn to use for each section, because I'll have to look at my notes and also figure out numbers wise how many grams it takes to knit however many rounds on the sleeve versus the body, and then I should be able to estimate how much yarn I need for each one section in order to have it come out looking the way I want it to look. So that will be coming, I'm sure, sometime in this year, but you never know, we shall see. But I have plans. I have plans to knit more than one. I really like the fit of this. I think the short row shaping might be a little bit more than most patterns have had that I have knit, at least, and it fits very comfortably. And I like that the neckline is very much a crew neck, on me at least. It is not stretched out, and because of the yarn I used, which is not superwash, it isn't as heavy. Now I don't think it's as drapey maybe as a fabric quality than superwash merino. It is still, you know, relatively drapey. It's definitely not stiff, but the feel of it is drier and less like hanging on you. I don't know if that makes any sense. That doesn't sound very nice, does it? Just not as a drapey heavy of a fabric as you would find superwash merino, and not necessarily for good or bad. It's just an observation. And the DK weight yarn that I mentioned that I would use for a future one is superwash merino, so I'm very curious how that will feel and wear compared to this one. Keep an eye out for Amy Scher's Instagram and sign up for her newsletter if you haven't already. That is where you'll get all the up-to-date information, and I will definitely have her website linked in the description box below. The next finished project I'd like to share with you is also a sweater. It is the Cordy pullover from the Moon and Turtle book by Kiyomi and Sachiko Bergen. And here is the cover of the book. Sachiko and Kiyomi are twin designers from Canada. And the pullover I knit is the one that's actually on the front cover here. Let me get to it so I can tell you information about it. Now, I had initially planned on knitting this for my Christmas sweater, which didn't happen. I had purchased this yarn back in September of year 2021. And, oh, here's the little coloring page that came with the pattern. I meant to stick that in on my project page, and I forgot to do that. Oh, here are more pictures of the sweater. So the colors they chose are pretty graphic, or you can choose one that's a little more neutral and a little more subtle, which is the route that I went. Because the pattern, the design of the yoke is already so graphic and bold, I wanted to tone it down a little bit by picking colors that I thought weren't as bold. So instead of doing black and white, I actually picked like that lavender gray color and the white, but you will see what I mean in a minute. Dun, 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 dun. Here is my beautiful cordy pullover. So I knit the size 2, which should have a finished circumference of 38 inches, which on me would be 6 inches of positive ease. The yarn I used is the same one in the pattern. I don't typically do that, but it was a yarn that I had never used before and that was going to be different. And that is Peace Fleece. It is 75% Navajo Rambouillet and domestic fine wool and 25% mohair. Whoops. And it comes to 200 yards and 113 grams. So here are the yarns that I used in their cake form. This is what I have remaining. So my main color is Sheplova Mushroom, which is this heathered brick red that almost looks tweed-like in some areas from the little flecks of other colors. I think if I pull it back a little, it won't be as blown out. The next color I used is Morning Dove. And this color is absolutely delightful. It is a lavendery gray that also has tweedy bits, at least that's what it seems like to me, of different colors. There's like hot pink and purple and brown and cream. It is really delightful and it's so beautiful. My color C is Chestnut, which is a warm brown. It definitely looks heathered to me. And the last color is Antarctic White, which is a creamy color. So this project is knit on US 8, which is 5mm, and US 7, which is 4.5mm. Oh, those are the same needles as the sweater I'm wearing. And what I found when I was knitting with this new to me yarn is that it is very sticky. What I mean by that is that it kind of wants to grip on itself. Like, it's not Velcro, it's definitely not sticking like Velcro there, but it definitely wanted to grip more to itself than, let's say, a superwash merino, or really any other yarn that I have knit with. I didn't find a problem or an issue or notice anything significant maybe when I was winding the yarn, but definitely when I was knitting with it, even when just knitting stockinette, sometimes I felt like I had to either force my needle in a little more, with a little more energy than usual, or like taking off that stitch. It just grabbed each other a little bit more. And then I found myself knitting looser to try to compensate for that so that I wouldn't have to pull it so much. So then because I was doing that, my gauge changed. So instead of, let's see, a blocked stockinette fabric on US 8 being 16 stitches for 4 inches, my finished was closer to 15. I don't know if some areas if it was even 14, but 15 stitches per inch, which you might think, oh, what's an inch? I mean, what's a stitch difference? But that's 1 stitch in 4 inches. So once you multiply that out, it can make a pretty big difference. So I ended up with, if it was like 15, closer to 15, 14, 15 stitches for 4 inches, my final project ended up being like 2 inches bigger. So it's definitely like, well, at 40 inches circumference, that's 8 inches of positive ease, which is too much ease for me, at least to comfortably wear all the time. I'll still wear it as an oversized sweater, but I'm gonna get up on my knees and show it to you here. It's pretty big. Bigger than most sweaters that I would be knitting and wearing for myself. Well, I noticed this might be bigger as I was knitting it, and I, on a whim, had my husband try it on, and it fit him really well. And at the time before blocking, it fit him maybe with no ease, but after blocking, I think it's more like 0 to 1 inch of positive ease, maybe closer to 1 inch of positive ease, depending. But the yoke is also pretty deep, which then also fits him really well compared to me, which again is fine if I want to layer or just wear it as an oversized sweater. But because I had finished my sleeves first and then went back to the body, I could tell that the sleeves actually were perfect length on him, and they are a bit long on me, but I don't really mind that. I feel like my arms are pretty long to begin with, but yes, it definitely covers my palms, and for him it's like perfect length right before his hand starts, so on his wrists. So then I thought, okay, well, I have enough yarn, so how about I just knit to the tall length so that I make sure that he can wear it, because then at least he can wear it more often than I can. Well, I knit the tall length, and after I blocked it and everything, I had him try it on. I gave it to him on Valentine's Day. It wasn't planned that way, it's just how it worked out, and it fits him perfectly. It looks so good, and it's the perfect fit for him. So I have never knit my husband a sweater before. He's had accessories, hats, mittens, fingerless gloves, scarves, all sorts of things like that, but not a sweater. It just seemed intimidating to knit him a sweater. And he's not like a huge guy. I mean, he's like 5'10". I don't know how much he weighs. But yeah, he's not huge, but it just seemed intimidating. I'm like 5'4.5". So I used to think I was 5'5", but after I had kids, maybe I shrunk a little. I don't know. Anyway, so the sweater does have a happy ending. Not that it would have had a bad ending. I would have worn it anyway if it was oversized, but I am very happy that my husband now has a sweater that I have knit him, and it fits really nicely, and it will last probably forever. The yarns that I have remaining, I have weighed them. I have a decent amount left, and I was thinking they would make a great hat, mitts, and because it is not superwash, it is very water repellent. Water repellent, the right word? It's not necessarily, I mean, it's kind of water resistant. It's not waterproof, but it's definitely going to repel more water than, let's say, a superwash merino or something like that. So anyway, I think hats, runaway yarn. Hats, mitts, I think I can still get stuff out of these. So that'll be really fun to work on at some point. The last finished project I'd like to share with you are a pair of socks. These socks I knit using mini skeins from my advent calendar that I purchased from River of a Knitter's Homestead. Here they are. They're so cheerful. Now, her advent was not all tweed yarn, but I pulled out all the ones that were tweed, and I've already used these yarns in my hat that I had shown previously, but I thought they went really well together for stripy socks. The last time I shared these with you, I think I was just past the gusset on one sock and maybe needed to catch up on the other one, something like that, I don't remember. But they are so fun to knit up. I did a 3x1 rib throughout, except for stockinette on just the bottom of the foot. And I did a slip stitch, heel flap, turn, and gusset. And I hadn't done that in a little while, so it was kind of fun to exercise those muscles again. I did cast on 60 stitches. I will cast on anywhere from 56 to 60 stitches for my socks. This yarn is a 2-ply, 400 yards for 100 gram Blueface Leicester tweed, and it just felt, I mean, it wasn't like thin in hand, but I think I could have done 56 or 60 stitches, honestly. It didn't, because of the ribbing, it stretches, so it might fit slightly looser on me instead of as snug, but it doesn't exactly bother me, it's just fine. I knit one round at the color changes, instead of the 3x1 rib to avoid having a pearl bump in the color change, and I will link to that tutorial in the description box below this video if you are curious on that. And I knit my ends in as I went, so I didn't even cut the ends afterwards because it doesn't bother me, so I just leave them inside. What else? I did 8 rounds per color stripe, and I used about 60 grams of yarn. I have an 8-inch foot circumference, 9¼ inch foot length, and I wear a US 7 women's shoe size, and I give you that information so that it can help you reference numbers and things like that if you are knitting for yourself or somebody else. I think that is it for these. I love how they turned out. I think they're so much fun and so cheerful. Okay, I took a little break there to turn on the oven so that it could preheat for some no-knead bread that I will be baking today. But I will save the details about the bread until we get to the end of this episode where I have that new section for eats and reads. So right now, let's get on to works in progress. What have you been working on lately? Have you been working on anything exciting? Something that maybe you have been really wanting to get to, or maybe you're slogging through a project that you would really like to finish, but just haven't had the energy to do it. I have a couple of new things that I am very excited to share with you, and I also have a project that I am currently knitting on as we speak, and I guess maybe we'll start with that. And I don't think my hands are in frame. They're just out of frame, so you can't quite see what I'm doing. I was trying to adjust the camera angle a little bit because I'm just having issues with the camera angle and lighting and stuff today, but I think this should work out pretty well where I'm at right now. I just don't have it low enough so that you can see that I am currently knitting on my half and half triangles wrap. This is a pattern by Pearl Soho. It is a free pattern, and this is my 3rd one. I won't go into tons of detail on it because I talk about it nearly every episode, so if you have been watching and following along so far, you will know what I am doing, and if you haven't been, I recommend you go back and watch some of the other episodes. If you just want to watch the one at the start of this one, I cast this on January 1st, 2022. So, this is knit up in Pearl Soho's linen quill, which is 50% fine Highland wool, 35% alpaca, 15% linen. Here is the tag. It comes with 439 yards for 100 grams, and I have always received more than 100 grams. So it's usually closer to 104, 105, maybe the highest I had was 106. And this pattern comes in 2 sizes, 190 stitches or 260 stitches for cast on, and I am doing 230. And that means I can, at my gauge, I can buy just 2 skeins of each color instead of 3, which is recommended for the larger size, which I have knit, but I definitely didn't use all 6 skeins. And so I did some math and figured it out that 230 stitches would work great for me and is kind of more of a medium size. Although when I blocked out my second one, which I cast on at 230 stitches for, it blocked out close to the large size, which I think my large size blocked out larger than the large size in the pattern. So these are my colors. Here's honey pink. It is a hard to describe color. It's like the faintest of warm honey yellow with hints of pink. Honey pink is a very good name for it. I just don't really know how to describe this color. It's hard to see the pinks in it. I think it is very subtle. I mean, I see it, but it's very subtle. This is how it looks knit up and garter. And turmeric yellow is my second color that I'm pairing it with, and this is a beautiful saturated warm gold. And these together, oh, I love it. I've named this one Golden Hour. And I have no deadline for it. It would be nice to have it done when warm weather comes along, but again, no deadline. This is the knit that I like to just pick up for whenever, and I have been able to actually read while knitting on this because there's no counting. It's just the knit stitch, and since it is garter flat, it's knitting on both sides. There's zero purling, and it's just something that I can easily pick up and put down. It doesn't matter if I'm in the middle of a row, and that makes it much easier to knit on if I'm reading, but also if I am knitting, you know, playing board games with the kids on the weekends, or just having other things that I need to be doing, and I can just pick it up and put it down for a few minutes here and there, or longer than that. So this is so relaxing, and I am somebody that does not get bored with knitting miles and miles of stockinette or miles and miles of knit stitch. So I think what also is really relaxing about this knit is that I don't have to worry about, well, not worry, but fit isn't as much of a concern. So like if you're knitting a garment, I feel like I have to be very conscious and aware of gauge, of fit, of yoke depth, of sleeve circumference, so many things. And it's not bad, it just uses brain power, right? And sometimes I just want something that doesn't require brain power or worry about fit. And this wrap is exactly that for me. So yeah, I love it. It's so much fun for me. I think I always forget to mention this. I am using the needles called for in the pattern, US 3 or 3.25 millimeter. I think it's 3.25 millimeter. And I knit my first one using Chaogu's, which is what I usually use in a lot of projects, but the tip on those were too sharp for this project. I feel like part of it is because I am literally doing the same exact movement over and over and over again for thousands of times, right? Or however many stitches. But I switched to, let's see, needles that I have not used before. Ahdieh's, and this is the original Ahdieh Turbo, not the Rocket. I think the Rockets are sharper. And it was my first time using these, at least on my second half and half triangles wrap, and I love it. It is smooth, and I don't have any issues with the cable. I still find Chaogu cables the best because there's zero memory to it, meaning it won't like get stuck in different positions. It is very pliable, and any plastic type of cord I feel like just has a little bit more memory than the Chaogu ones, although these ones have been just fine. And again, I'm just knitting like back and forth like this, and it doesn't seem to bother me at all. But yeah, I have really liked using these Ahdieh's on here. I feel like the tip is not as sharp, but they're still slick enough that my stitches just come right off the way I want them to. So yes, I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because I feel like I had maybe last talked about needles maybe last fall when I finished my first one and maybe cast on my second one, or was thinking about it. It was when I was thinking about what to use for my needles, and so switching it up really made a big difference for me. Okay, are you ready to see a work in progress that is new? I am testing Amy Scher's Go Gently cardigan, and let's see what I've got going here. Maybe I'll show you my swatch first. Here is my lovely fuzzy swatch. So when I knit swatches, I usually go at least an inch bigger. So the swatch, if it's for 4 inches, 4 by 4 inches, I will do 5 by 5 or even 6 by 6, just depending on how I'm going to do that edging. Because if my edging is going to have garter on it so that it lays more flat, that will eat up part of the inches, right? And then I want to make sure my stitches aren't going to be kind of wonky on the sides and getting pulled or distorted in any way. So measuring from the center is going to be the most accurate. And then I also do these yarn overs, which indicates the US needle size. So there are 6 holes, and so basically I do a yarn over and a knit 2 together, and that will tell me what needle size I used. And then I usually attach a little tag. See if it'll focus there. I attach a little paper tag that tells me my gauge on it, what needles I used, what yarn I used, and the colorways. And I do keep all my swatches because I sometimes reference them later on. Let's say I have a different project I want to knit with similar yarns. I might check the gauge on there before I even knit a swatch just to have something to go off of. So the yarns I'm using here, we're continuing with my linen quill obsession. This is Peony Pink. Oh, it's so pretty. It's this very delicate, soft, pale pink. And I am pairing it with a discontinued base by Knit Picks. And it's called Coral Shell, I think is the color. It's the Alpaca Bloom Lace Weight, which is 91% superfine alpaca, 9% nylon. Here's the tag. And here's the yarn. Now this one is kind of a dusty pink color. And it's very, very fluffy and soft. I find alpaca lace weight to feel, it's not softer than mohair, but I feel like it's floofier than mohair. And this, having nylon being that center core instead of silk, it isn't shiny like silk mohair is. So I feel like this combo is knitting up to be a beautiful, more matte fabric than mohair silk would be. Or mohair silk plus, you know, superwash merino. It's definitely got more of a matte look. I'm going to hold this up without losing any stitches. So it is a cardigan and it's knit flat. This is what I've had so far. There is short row shaping, and basically right now I am knitting the increases so that it grows. And that's where I'm at. And her cardigan has this ruffle that's like a special detail across the front. It is so delightful, and I think the colors that I am knitting it in are going to be perfect for spring. Let me see if I have my buttons here to show you. These buttons, I'm not sure, I can't remember where I got them because I've had them for years. Let's see here. Here they are. And they just happen to be the perfect size for this pattern. And they're all a little bit different. Let's see, but they have a floral motif on them. Hopefully that showed up there. But they have kind of a tan cream beige, like a beige base to them. And then they all have different flowers. And I think depending on how many buttons I end up using, I think I will be able to use a different floral button for each one. I think that is all I have to say about that test, but I am so excited about all of the different fabric variations that testers are knitting up and the buttons people are choosing. It is going to be so fun to see everybody's finished cardigans. The last work in progress I'd like to share with you is also from the Moon and Turtle book. I have a swatch here. It is for the Kinsan pullover. Isn't this swatch so cute? So I have this plummy purple with like a burnt orange and a very pale pink. And let me flip to the page of the pattern so you can see what variations there are. There are so many different ways to knit this particular pullover. There's a cropped long sleeve version, there's a short sleeve version, and they also give you different options for knitting the stripes, which is also really fun. I don't know if I can show you this page without giving away stuff. Maybe if I can just show you the swatches on the side there. So I have figured out that I want to do my stripes this way, kind of thinner stripes that will repeat. And the yarns that I am using are the Yarn Collective. It's a sport weight yarn called Ravelry Sport, and all the colors are named after different artists. So this is Henri Plum. And this yarn is a 35% wool, 35% alpaca, 30% mulberry silk. So it has a little bit of a sheen to it, which is beautiful. And then the colors that I am pairing it with, let's see here. I know this one is Amadeo Sienna. This is the rusty orange. But I can't seem to find the tag for the pink. Well, here is the pink ball. It's a very light pink. So these are all from the same base. And I had just barely cast this one on because then I signed up for Amy's test and, well, I needed to do that one. So this one is just barely, it's barely cast on. I have the markers in place for the raglan increases, and I have it secured in a needle cozy so that it doesn't fall off, but that's where I'm at. So this one, we'll see when I get to it. It is going to be so fun. I think I'm going to do elbow length sleeves. I haven't quite decided yet. I am aiming for the size 2, which has a finished circumference of 38.5 inches, which gives me about 6.5 inches of positive ease. I do plan on having it as something that I can just wear on its own. So elbow length sleeves I feel like are very versatile for me because with this much ease I can still put a thin long sleeve shirt under it if I want to, or just kind of wear it on its own. So we will see where we go with that one. Okay, my friends, the bread is in the oven. So the no-knead bread I follow, I will link in the description box below, and I usually add stuff to it. So I use it as a base recipe. The amount of flour is 450 grams. You can use bread flour or all-purpose, or sometimes I sub in some whole wheat if I want a little more texture or hardiness to it. There is 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of yeast. I usually use the SAF instant yeast, so I mix it in with my dry ingredients instead of with my wet. And I usually use less than 2 teaspoons if I know it's going to be sitting out proofing for longer. The 2 teaspoons I think is if you are proofing for only 2 hours maybe. So I usually use 1 or less than 1 in the summer. In the winter we keep our house pretty cool, so I feel like if I use less than 1, it may not get as bubbly as it needs to be unless I keep putting it on heater vents or moving it around with the sun moving around through the windows. But yes, I will usually try to do it early in the morning and then bake it in the early afternoon or something like that so that it's ready either for after school or for dinner. So today's has cubed up cheese in it. There's like a Kerrygold Dubliner cheese in it, and sometimes I use Gouda, sometimes I use Gruyere, sometimes I use cheddar, sometimes Parmesan. If I have green onions, sometimes I'll throw in green onions too. So I put all of the dry ingredients together before I add the water. And then usually if I'm adding extra ingredients, I need to bump up the water a little bit. The temperature of the water is usually between 110 and 125 maybe. And yeah, so I love making no-knead bread. It is so easy and it's so good. We usually can go through a whole loaf in one meal between the 4 of us. So I make the bread pretty often. As far as reading goes, so I had alluded to staying up late reading a lot lately. I have gone through all 8 books of the Anne of Green Gables series that I mentioned I had started 3 weeks ago. And it had been a while since I read the whole series. As a kid, I remember going to the library and getting the books, and then if something was out because somebody else had it, I had to wait, or else just jump forward and then not have any idea what was happening. And rereading them now, again, I don't know how many years later, I'm picking up different things from it, for sure. Historical context, social norms, being able to relate differently. And I think my 2 favorites are Anne's House of Dreams and Anne of Ingleside. I think those are books, are those books 5 and 6 or 6 and 7? I mean 5 and 6, I think. And I think it's partially because of the age that Anne is in those books are more similar to like how old I was when I got married and how old I am now, and kind of looking into the future and reevaluating who I am as a person, as a wife, as a mother. There's just so many different feelings that come with that, and it's amazing how so much can change in 100+ years, and yet how much is similar. And I just got to thinking about just a lot of things, so many different feelings, so many different things, and looking up stuff about World War I, because the last book goes through the time of World War I. And yeah, just thinking about a lot of different things. So that was an enjoyable read. And I've also started reading 1,000 Beginnings and Endings. I'll pop a picture of that book here on the screen. And that is super enjoyable. It is an anthology of stories written by East and South Asian authors, and it has folklore, star-crossed lovers, modern retelling of old tales, and the different settings. Some are from the past, some are from the future, some are from the present, and I love it. I think it's so interesting, and I think representation definitely matters, and to have stories told with characters that have names that go with different cultures makes a difference. And people's culture and language and food are all so interrelated that you can't just have one without the other. And to be able to have these authors tell their stories in their ways, in a very authentic and genuine way, is it's just really great to read. So I recommend the book so far. I am maybe halfway through, maybe a third of the way through so far. But since they are all short stories, you can read just a little bit here and there if you want to. Something that has made a difference for me is being able to knit and read. So I had mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's only if I'm knitting stockinette, only knit stitch for sure, and no counting or lace patterning or any patterning really, or increases, because I can't count and read at the same time. So I've been using, this is one of the paperweights I've been using. This paperweight was gifted to me when I lived in North Carolina. So I did my graduate school in North Carolina, and this was a parting gift. So it's a dogwood flower inside of like a, I don't know, is it resin or something? But it's pretty heavy. And so I use this to prop the pages open, because I read from like books, not from like a digital screen. So if you had a Kindle or something like that you're reading from, then you wouldn't really have that issue, right? You just prop it up and read from that. But I don't do that. So I read from books, and the pages will get all over the place, and you really need your hands or your fingers, right, to hold it open. So I found a way to prop it open with a paperweight. Now, yes, I have to stop every once in a while to either move the paperweight, flip the page, things like that, but it's a good break on your hands anyway, right, when you're knitting. So I just prop it up, and I'm able to read and look down if I have to, or up when I have to, but I'm not sitting like hunched over a table. It's propped up enough that I can just glance up at it. And usually when I'm knitting, I'm not looking straight down anyway. I feel like I have my knitting a little more out in front of me. And if you are curious as far as proper positioning, or I shouldn't say like right and wrong way of positioning, but ways that can help maybe make you're crafting more easy on your body, I highly recommend Ahdieh, the knitting PT, and that's PT for physical therapist, not PT for patient, or point, or I don't know. So Ahdieh puts out reels on ways to improve or change the way you craft to make it more enjoyable or less painful if you have pain or different things like that. So I wanted to insert that in there for sure because things affect people differently and how you knit might be different, and I tend to knit, I feel like sitting pretty straight up. I mean, sometimes I'm a little hunched over, but when I'm reading and knitting, I am not slouched all the way over. I feel like it's comfortable, and having to like move it around the paperweight and like put down my knitting and things like that are short breaks on my hands anyway. I wanted to put in another thing about that is when I wasn't reading, but I could do little exercises while I was knitting. So my knitting would be on a table, and Ahdieh, if you're watching, you might get a laugh out of this. But Ahdieh had shown a video of doing these, I think they were like ankle strengthening exercises where you go up on your toes and then slowly back down and up and down. Well, that's something I can do like reps of while I am knitting. I can't remember if it was ankle or calves. Well, whatever it was, I can do them, and that is kind of fun. So you can exercise safely and knit at the same time. I'm looking around here just to make sure I didn't miss anything, and I think I covered everything that I wanted to chat about. Hopefully, while I'm editing, the bread will come out beautifully, and I'll insert a little footage of the bread coming out of the oven at the end of this video. I hope you are doing well, and I hope you are finding ways to take a breath, to relax, to just close your eyes and just zone out for a little bit, because I think we could all use that from time to time. So with that, cheers to being creative, take care, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.
Tree, out through the bunny hole and off hopped she.